Right. So we are up and running. I'm gonna just do
Exciting.
a. It is exciting. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Let's give folks the
Hello, I'm happy to be
opportunity
here.
to log on for just a second here. I want to make sure all of our platforms are up and running. And yes, okay. So let's jump right into it. Everyone,
Okay.
welcome, welcome, welcome to Make Money Mondays, a part of our digital learning series here at the Pinellas County Urban League. We are here every first and third Mondays with subject matter experts sometimes, National Urban League experts sometimes, but the goal is always tips on how our local enterprisers can make more money. So we have a great serial entrepreneur, subject matter expert, in my
Yeah.
opinion, in the building tonight. And so very excited, but want to welcome everyone officially on behalf of our president and CEO, Nikki Gaskin Capehart. The Pinellas County Urban League just welcomes everyone into this space to get these tips and to benefit. Here, we're all about giving the tools to our community to achieve self sustainability, the
hmm
tools to build generational wealth. And those things are, at the core. And Make Money Mondays is a brainchild of our great leader who may join us later, but if she cannot make it, I want to encourage everyone on her behalf to become a member of the Urban League. Join us, join the Next Level Urban Alliance so that you can be privy to all of the first access for exclusive opportunities, and so that we can help position you for better procurement and sourcing opportunities. That's a goal for our entrepreneurs.
hmm
Um, but tonight, we are in for a treat. We're just here until 7 o'clock. We have in the building with us Miss Taylor Wolfe. Taylor and I had the privilege of meeting a few weeks ago at a supplier event. Another reason you need to join the Next Level Urban Alliance, you need to know when these supplier events are happening, right?
All these opportunities. Yeah.
All these opportunities. And I was just very inspired, Taylor, like just by your um, journey, by your story, and I thought it would be such a treat for
hmm
our audience to be able to, hear from you about how you decided to scale in your journey. So before we dive into it,
hmm
audience, I just want to formally introduce our presenter for tonight. So Taylor Wolfe, she's a Tampa native, University of South Florida grad, like myself.
Go Bulls.
So same thing. Yeah, you know it.
Go Bulls.
But her career it actually spans over a decade in small business environments, advertising, real estate, marketing, entertainment, and Taylor really found a good career in talent recruitment and career development. So after building a career off that, I'm gonna leave you some rooms to kind of fill in some of those gaps. In 2024, um, she stepped away from kind of the corporate world and to join the small business world as a full time co-owner. Albert and Ellis Landscaping, Tree and Service, um, full time co owner of that business. So, what's kind of started as a back to back kind of response, and like I said, I'm not going to tell too much of your narrative here.
That's
Um,
okay.
but you've been successfully able to pivot into this entrepreneurial space and have not only just been finding sustainability,
hmm
but have been actively and successfully scaling yourself for growth. And
Right.
that we love. So today, Taylor still does that, runs this signature notary group as well, all with all kind of certifications. I know that's going to be a part of our conversation tonight.
Yeah.
Serving across several counties,
hmm
and just kind of bringing this detailed oriented approach that's very driven So from vendors to client relationships to kind of pushing forward with some of these government contracts, right? And public, people are always asking us about public funding and so forth. And so,
Hmm.
um, very excited about the information you're going to bring to us to the stage tonight. But I want to formally introduce Taylor Wolfe. Thank you for joining us, Taylor.
Hi
Um,
guys.
so before Taylor gets in, guys, I'm going to be asking her a few questions throughout the night as she presents. But we are streaming live now via Facebook, LinkedIn,
Okay.
and YouTube. So if you have a question of sorts, feel free to drop it into one of the comment sections. We have team members kind of monitoring those who'll be able to filter them back, and hopefully Taylor can answer your questions in real time. But
Yeah.
Taylor, I want to welcome you. Thank you for joining us tonight.
Of course, of course, of course, of course. Hello, everybody. I'm happy to be here. And thank you so much for even allowing me to speak because I know everybody's journey is unique. So I'm happy to offer a different perspective as well, too. Being ex-corporate and now being an entrepreneur full time of two businesses. I'm a serial entrepreneur. I even started, doing lashes when I was younger, but I kind of pivoted to back to corporate after I graduated from USF. And I didn't ever think that I would really be here, to be honest with you. I didn't think that I would be a full time entrepreneur. I didn't think there would be a need for me to do that. But I feel blessed and happy that that opportunity came.
Perfect. Well, let's jump right
Yeah.
into it. I think you came tonight to talk to us about the mindset that it takes.
Yeah, I will say that. Yeah, so what I do here, I do two things. So Albert and Ellis Landscaping and Tree Service, that's the main bread and butter, and then the Signature Notary Group, which, if you could believe, the Notary Group started before Albert and Ellis in terms of personally, because Albert and Ellis has been in business for about 13 years. But I thought this would be a good perspective for people to see a non-traditional path because sometimes we go to school and we think that we're supposed to just like commit to going to school, but I always knew there was something greater for me in regards to that. But I'm still happy to be here with you guys. And just to give you a little bit of feedback, so started in corporate America. And when I say corporate America, it's also small business because when I was in college, I used to intern and then I eventually got to work for one of the companies I interned for. It was a very small ad
Mm,
agency because my degree is in communications. So I tried like media buying. I worked for like a design firm, but finally landed on a social media marketing firm. And I loved it there. And then I ended up being poached by one of their clients, which was an entertainment company. And they were small as well too. So I think I got, when I say small, I mean small in the size of employees, not necessarily in business, but that allowed
mm,
me to see a lot of the inner workings of how they operate and what they do. And then after that, I worked
yeah.
for a real estate marketing company. So that kind of merged both of those together. And then after working there for a little bit, I decided to work at Robert Half because communications is broad. And I found myself, being approached by a recruiter. And I was like, oh, this is something I could try. But at the end of the day, it's still sales. And you have to always remember that. So that's where that leap kind of
So,
comes in because,
so
sorry.
I was gonna ask. So you just kind of no. You followed your natural kind of progression, but
Right, right.
along this, it sounds like you were picking up just things that you just already had the foresight to understand you needed. Like how did that work?
Well, I'll be honest. I think if you've graduated college, you've been there where you're like, my degree says this, but I ended up in a job that's doing something different because when I first graduated, I was doing something directly in my field, but they were small and they really didn't have, a lot of the capital to sustain, a young adult growing up because you're trying to think about, okay, I'm building my life. I want to have all these things. I want to have an apartment, all this stuff, because I still had a waitress while working at these smaller companies because I wanted the experience and I wanted to work at that type of company, but they still wasn't paying bills. So I still had to waitress and do things like that. When I found Robert Half, I was like, okay, this is a way to make money. I know and to make money. It was sales. Also, that bonus was kind of the biggest factor. They telling you like, oh wow, you can make this much, because you get a base salary, but then you have this opportunity to do more. So, and then I used to like when I was younger, I used to work in retail, so the sales wasn't super scary to me. And then I like to talk, so I thought it would be good. it was good for a
Mhm.
while, but also there's the ups and downs too, especially after COVID. And then a lot of the companies that I worked with were small businesses. So they have to have the capital to hire somebody and also hire Robert Half as well too. So they have to kind of pay double the price.
Mhm.
So that was always like a little tension because that was my market specifically. That's not everything that Robert Half, but that was just my market. But that still let me get to see the inner workings of a lot of small businesses. So I will always be thankful for all these experiences because that allowed me to know what I know now. And
Right.
then we had those hurricanes in 2024 where we had those back-to-back hurricanes. And we had been talking about, oh, you should come on. Because I would always tell them like, oh, you should do this because I've seen a company do this, or you should do this, or you don't have this in place, like you should really do this. And then the time just called for it. So I was like, okay, are you really
Mhm.
going to do this? Are you really going to leave? Are you really gonna leave? Yeah, but
Right.
you're just like, I'm leaving all this stuff. And then, it's instability as well, too. So then you're like, okay, well, do I trust myself? Do I trust this? Do I trust this company growing? You have to ask yourself all these things, but then you also have to believe in it. So that's where that mindset comes in.
Mhm.
But no, now, the two businesses work in conjunction because I started Signature Notary Group in 2021, like
Mhm.
in the midst of COVID. And I did small things, but not super large things. But the more that I got engulfed with Albert and Ellis, the more that these things would come up, especially with permitting or some of these government contracts, you need to notarize things. So I was like, okay, well then these things could run simultaneously, and it's also a low overhead as well too.
So
But a
I
little
do have,
bit,
I do have a question
little
real
bit,
quick before we
yes.
roll into, because what you said I think is super profound,
Hmm.
and I think a lot of our audience can kind of benefit from this kind of leap of faith. I think it's easy
Hmm.
to look at the slide and say, yeah, this is how it went, this is how it went, but there were, I'm sure, some private conversations, right, that you had to have
Yeah.
with yourself that nobody saw. And so what were those conversations with yourself like before anybody else saw the move?
Right. So naturally, like I mentioned before, we talk about you go to school for this degree and then you take a step back and you're like, okay, well, is this even really what I want to do? So a lot of the conversations I had was like, okay, did you really use your degree to the full potential?
Mm,
Did you really do everything that you could have in the
mm,
corporate world before you're just deciding to let it all go?
mm,
And in hindsight, that wasn't really important, or that
mm,
doesn't really matter in terms of life now, because it's like, that's not really what fulfilled me. So I would always have
mm,
that conversation. And then also the conversation of, what are my coworkers going to think, because I decided to undo the norm. I was a minority in my office, not the whole company, because it's a super large company, but my office specifically I was. So me having this kind of idea of, not sitting behind a desk, sometimes I would share little tidbits about that, like some of my coworkers, and it wasn't always well received. So I would kind of reel that back in. And
mm.
then I had like kind of like a workplace incident where I was like, this was actually kind of bad. And when I finally decided to like let my boss know, I was like, oh, hey, I actually want to leave. And she was like so taken back. And I was like, it's like not the best environment here. So it was a couple of factors that made
Right.
me feel confident to make my decision, essentially.
Got it.
Yeah.
All right. Go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead.
You know how corporate America gets. But yeah, so a little bit about us. So we've been in business for 13 years. So we do anything from, full service tree service. So that's removing trees, stump grinding, lot clearing, and things like that. We are MBE, SBE, WBE certified and Better Business Bureau accredited. And we are just trying to be better. We thrive during the storm season. We thrive during pre-storm season. We thrive during the summer. But the business was doing well before me, of course, but there was a lot of systems that were not put in place that I kind of came in and helped with. So me working with those small businesses beforehand were very helpful to the situation here. But this is just a little pictures about, some of the things we do. We kind of get to the nitty gritty. It's not that we just take on only big jobs. We do small jobs as well too. And no job is ever too small. It just has to be the right, client and everything. But just a little insight on
Yeah.
that. And we are 4.9 star rated on Google, and we also work a lot in Pinellas County as well too. So we're always over there. But yeah, just a little
Multiple
bit.
counties. Love that.
Yes, multiple counties. We always say West Central Florida because we don't like to limit ourselves.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Hmm.
but I'll say a lot of the things that I implemented in, like, some people don't, mom and pops, they operate without like a CRM and things like that. They operate without follow up. They operate without proper insurances. They operate without,
Mhm.
not even having these designations. So when I came in, the hurricane was good for the residential side, but then also we noticed a deficit that where was the option for us to work for the county or the city and things like that. So I had to come in and basically learn all that stuff from scratch. So that's
Okay.
why you guys see me at, these events now.
So that leads me to another question. I think our
Okay.
audience would find interesting because before the money came, right, as you're
Hmm.
integrating yourself in these new spaces, before everything kind of like looked real and started clicking, what was the first system you built that made you feel like, okay, I'm not just freelancing this, but
Hmm.
I'm business?
Right.
Where did
Okay.
you
So,
start with that system journey?
so during the hurricane, it was grassroots. So his cell phone number was it's the same as a business phone number, right? So
Mhm.
like, the day before, the day after, and during, his phone was just blowing up all, everything. So I was like, okay, 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 okay. I don't want to let people down because your people have tree branches through their house, right? So we're like, okay, well,
Right.
we need a system to figure out who do we get to first. Okay, how are we going to get to them? Are we taking notes on what's going on? Because they're calling up a tree company, so it's like kind of the first come first serve. So we
Mhm.
have this specific system called Thrive, and it's basically for service owners specifically. But he bought it, paid for it, never used it, and I was like, so you have nothing, you've never used this before, and you pay like $800 a month. Basically, you can invoice. It's a CRM. It is email. It's this vast, program. And I'm like, okay, well, what we need to do, every person that calls, we need to write their names down. We put it in the system, and we need to figure
Mm,
out where they are on the map and how we can get to them. And
mm,
then also people were able to send pictures, so we were able to send out invoices quickly, so then we were able to
mm.
capture jobs more quickly, as opposed to, oh, let's go out there, because you can't go everywhere, you can only
Right.
do what you see, and if it was too dangerous or something that we wouldn't be able to do, we would let them know. But that's kind of the first thing I did. I got our CRM set up, so now our email list is long, because he used to just send invoices through QuickBooks, send take payments through QuickBooks and invoices through another system. So everything was not together. So first
Mhm.
thing we did was integrate the customers that were in QuickBooks into Thrive. Yeah. So then we meshed it. So that was the first thing that we did, essentially. Sorry. But yeah. So again, the first point I'll say, we did not have a plan. And I feel like when you're working with, sometimes your spouse or just someone new, you have to really understand how they work and what they are used to doing, because I'm telling him all these things, but also it's like, okay, well, I've never done this before. So it also seems like a little new and scary, but
Yeah.
we kind of just have to take the leap of faith, because it's not the
We
perfect
we
plan. There's never the perfect time.
and we didn't lead with who your business partner is, but I
No.
want to I want to get out of that question and allow you to kind of get back in your bag so you can um, kind of tie all this in together because
Right,
a
right,
lot
right.
of our entrepreneurs are in your predicament these days.
Right. Yeah. Which I think hopefully it's positive for a lot of people. So I do understand that. And then also it's different when, someone's an entrepreneur and then you have that corporate paycheck, right? So it does seem scary, because now you're saying I have to use all my energy, all my knowledge to put that in the business. So that also is a motivating factor for me, because it's like a traditional family business at that point. So you have to spend all your time and energy making sure you're doing things that are helping it be profitable. So it's
Right.
scary, but it's worth it. But also it's like, you kind of got to go hard or go home at that situation. So
Yep.
I will say that. But and then also I made another point here where we talk about sales. That was something that I always had an issue with in my last job, because some months would be super great and then other months would be not so great. And
Mm.
that also lets me know that, I could do hard things, or I remember sometimes at Robert Half, I'll be like, I literally have to close this deal, or the month is trash, or I'm going to be put on a
Right.
PIP or something like that. So that does build resilience, and it also motivates you to go harder, or even so you kind of bring that same energy to the business as well too. And then always positioning. So I mentioned that, we worked a lot on getting all these designations. Getting all these designations also opened my eyes to all the opportunities that are in the city or even neighboring counties. So that's why you even saw me at St. Pete event, because honestly, I always say this, I like St. Pete more than Hillsborough County in terms of events and stuff, because I think you guys are way nicer. I always tell everybody that.
I like St. Pete better than off bias. We,
Yeah.
we got our Hillsborough for folks.
Yeah.
But I mean, just because you bring that point up, are there stark differences between the two markets?
Hmm.
Or is business business business? Do you just have to stick to kind of your core tenets?
Well, so I'll say markets, or even just even neighborhoods, right?
Mm,
People make the joke about St. Pete being like kind of like more hippie-ish and laid back. I will say like clients are a little bit more nicer, or maybe they're a little bit more open. Sometimes I go to certain parts of Tampa and they have a certain expectation, so you're
mm,
also fighting against that. And we always want to seem like a subject matter expert. There's a term that we have in the tree service companies called chuck in a truck. And that's like kind of basically, the guy that you see riding around on pickup truck with the saw saying you'll cut your palms for $25. So we're
mm.
constantly trying to fight that narrative, right?
Yeah.
Because it's like we have grown so far because we started with lawns, and then now we do only trees. And one, it's kind of dangerous. Two, we have positioned ourselves to even be able to, look nice to commercial or government entities. So I think we're a little bit higher caliber. We got all the insurances you asked for. We do all these things just so we can set ourselves apart. So we're always trying to fight that narrative, because, sometimes you get
Mm,
people that are like, that live in like HOAs, and then they're like, oh, can you do this for like $50? And it's like, no, do you know how much gas it takes to get there? And then plus
mm,
insurance, and then pay the staff. So we're
mm.
always fighting that narrative. But it's just, trying to help
So
people
I got
understand.
I got another question for you to
Yeah.
that point, because I think a lot of people want freedom, right? A lot of
Mhm.
people look
Yeah.
at starting their own business and entrepreneurship as a path to freedom, but
Right.
they don't always understand necessarily like the discipline, perhaps that
Right.
comes with freedom. So,
Right.
what has entrepreneurship kind of taught you about what you're talking about, which is kind of being built differently, like just
Right.
the way that you differently approached
Right.
your scaling.
So we definitely have a saying. It's called, it has to be in you, not on you. So
Mm,
the energy that you have, the discipline you have, it's never going to be like an armor. It's always going to be inside of you, because we just like went to the gym, right? I can tell myself like, oh, I'm going to go later. And then you can never go. So just like with entrepreneurship, you can tell yourself, oh, I'm going to do this task, and then never do it. But then what does that mean for you and your business? I
right.
always, with the mindset aspect, I always have to tell myself, think about my future self. What does she
Hmm.
look like? What is she doing? Would she appreciate this? And I use that in business and all throughout my life, because it's like,
Mm,
okay, I want to eat this yummy looking dessert, but what will my thighs say? Okay, I want to take forever to follow up with this client, but are we going to lose this deal? You know, I want to maybe take a long time to look at a proposal. Turns out it's 80 pages. And I'm the type of person that I have to print it out,
mm,
read it, and highlight it. So entrepreneurship makes you realize that there's no one coming to save you, and
mm.
nothing works unless you do. And in the Bible it says faith without work is dead. So there's that.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
We love a good
Yeah.
scripture. We love a good scripture.
Yeah, and that's why I always made that point, that there's always so much to do. Like there's always
Right.
something to do, because I mentioned diversifying obviously with the notary business as well too, but the other aspect is like we have commercial clients, residential clients, or government entities as well too. There's always stuff to do. There's always things that you can do to diversify yourself. So reaching out to realtors, construction companies, HOAs, going for government contracts. So there's always something to do. It never ends. And you're always looking to better the business. And there's never a finish line with that either.
That's a good mindset. It's a good
Yeah,
mindset.
I'll say that. But do you guys have any more questions about the tree company, or should I just pivot over now?
No, because the Easter egg is the signature notary group. We provided what's
Yeah.
due to you as an entrepreneur, but you have two very different business lanes.
Hmm.
So these notary services on one hand, the tree service and landscaping business on the other hand.
Yes.
Just through this next section, definitely want to hear about the business, but more so, what did this kind of diversification do for your confidence as a business owner?
Right. Because I often battle with imposter syndrome,
Mm,
because sometimes I find myself like, oh, you're really doing this. Or when someone asks me at like, when I go to like events, I always talk about the tree service business. And I never really plug this because I think that that's the best bread and butter. But in hindsight, both are very important to me, essentially. And sometimes I don't want to say I downplay myself, like, oh, you're a notary, but it's not a notary. I provide a service that people need, because
right.
especially with the way the world is and legal documents and things like that, I basically come out and I assist them. So I do loan signings, I do real estate closings, legal document notarizations, and I'm mobile too. So I'll come to
Mm,
you and I do all those things as well. And I'm certified by the NNA. So, and this is my second commission as well too. So I've had it for a while, but it helps me be more confident in the other business to talk about that business, because you're supposed to, think about like, I'm a business owner in this regard too. So I kind of
right.
got to double it up. Yeah.
Yeah. Most certainly. Most certainly. Um,
Yeah.
so with for the folks watching,
Hmm.
because in your this part of your entrepreneurial journey came after you had started the co-ownership of the tree service.
Oh, so this happened first. This is before
This
I even
happened
thought
first.
about,
Okay.
yeah, before I even thought about being a co-owner, essentially, because I was a serial entrepreneur, and during COVID I saw, people were like, oh, because I didn't necessarily want to do real estate. I'll say that,
Mhm.
because I think it's a saturated market or that you shouldn't do that. I just thought that maybe this was a different way to get into it, but also like have a little bit more time than the average realtor. So that, because I was working full time as well too. So a lot of times that I would
Mhm.
do things, it would be, on the weekends, or it would be, maybe during work when someone needed one thing, or also my family would always ask about it and things like that too. So I would just like help them out with stuff. So it was something that
Mhm.
was on the back burner. But then the more that I got with Albert and Ellis, I realized that, oh, this is in conjunction, because we're working with real estate agents, we're working with construction companies. Sometimes you look at these proposals and there's stuff that has to be notarized, or even with permitting and things like that. So this was a way for me to
Right.
kind of take out the middleman, and it's also a low overhead as well too. So I'll say that. So I mentioned that it doesn't take too much for me to run both of them, because they can be ran simultaneously. So that's another reason why I keep it going, because at one point in time I was like, oh, I don't know if I'm going to keep doing this, when it was time to renew my commission, because I didn't know that if it was
Mhm.
like,
Right.
necessary to do. Yeah. But yeah.
Yeah. I think it's amazing that you kind of stuck to both of them. I imagine there were like some instability moments that
Oh, of
um,
course.
uh,
Yeah.
caused those questions to arrive, maybe some setbacks. But what did you incorporate to prepare? To I guess just to prepare for that kind of thinking. Like, was it something that kind of was innate? Because I heard you earlier say it's in you and not on you.
Yeah.
But
So
we,
I guess the reason, I guess that to piggyback off of that, I feel like that I was, like, I call this like I always say that in sales, we always used to say you need to have a PMA, positive
mm,
mental attitude, right? So I always try to have that. And then also it's okay, well, PMA coupled with a CEO mindset. Yes, I would have that energy towards Albert and Ellis. And then when it came to the
mm,
other business, I would kind of be lackadaisical on that. And then I had to reel that in, because it was like, this also is helpful to the business. This also is something that you need to pay attention to. This is also something that you're going to have to show up for. So it's always a battle. And I think, sometimes when one business is doing better than the other, you kind of think like, okay, oh man, what's going on here? You know what I mean? And that also something that kind of throws you off your
mm,
kilter. But the mindset thing is like something that you have to just keep moving forward because you know, they say depression can't hit a moving target. So you got to keep going.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, you
yeah.
got to keep
Love
going.
that. Love.
Yeah.
So let's get into to the crux of it because I mentioned here at PCUL, a big part of our culture for our entrepreneurs is building that self sustainability and that generational wealth. And our president and CEO has made it clear that changing mindsets, like you're talking about, is a key part of that.
Hmm.
So we've kind of glossed over the co-ownership part, but it's cute in theory.
In
In
theory.
practice,
In
it's
theory.
very real.
In
I'm sure
theory.
it's
In
very
theory.
real. So
In
yeah,
theory.
let's kind of
Yeah.
dig into that. What has to be in place before you go into business with somebody, let alone somebody you have to, go home
Live
and
with. Yeah. Yeah.
live life with.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So
It's a real
I that's a theory because even your friends, because all of your relationships are important, whether it be a friendship, you know, professional, romantic, they're all important, and
thing.
you never want to do anything that would ruin or taint any of that, whether no matter who you go into business with. So I'll say that. So the thing I think is the most important to me is like you have to learn how to communicate effectively. You have to learn how to get your point across in a way that is not rude or demeaning, or also learn your
Mm,
partner, business partner, friendship partner, learn your partner in a sense of
mm,
where you can say what you need to say, or you can present an idea, or you could maybe give a rebuttal to their idea, because sometimes they can't see what you see and vice versa. Because sometimes I can think
right.
something's a great idea, or I can be like, oh wow, this is so great, and then they're like, they point out the holes in it, and that's not necessarily to be rude. That's also to be like, okay, well, I wasn't even thinking it from that point of view. So
Yeah.
that's why it's sometimes good to have, you know, a secondary person as well too. But I'm happy that we're talking about this because one of the things that I think is really important as well too is to define the roles. So
Mm.
when you,
I was gonna
yeah,
ask you
just
that. I was gonna ask you, is trust kind of, and you're my partner or you're my
mhm,
friend, you're my long time whatever. Is trust
yeah,
enough? I know you're a systems person. Do systems and roles have to protect a relationship?
they do. So, and also it prevents things from, you know, falling through the cracks. You know, when you
Mm,
say, oh, I'm going to handle this, you're going to handle this, then we have an understanding of what's to be handled. And then there
right.
are things that we collaborate on, but, or even if I have questions and stuff like that, because I do some field work, not a lot, some. So I always try to make sure that I'm like, understanding what we do in terms of how we quote things, and you know, make sure that I understand what the client or customer is asking, because he can be everywhere, and then also the teams are different places as well too, and then the stuff has to get done because I'm doing the back office, I'm doing HR, I'm doing all that stuff, you know, and he's doing
Right.
the field work and he does estimates as well too. But sometimes if he's across the bridge and I'm here and they are, the client's like, oh, I'm only can be here this time, I have to step in too. So
Right.
I think that that is the best way to not create friction, but always to make sure that I understand where he's coming from, what his expectations are, and he has to understand my expectations too. Because sometimes when it
Yeah.
comes to the sales part, I have to coach on closing
Hmm.
because, you know, the business is going to do great. We have the estimates, but how do you close? You have to
Right.
close, always be closing. One of my favorite movies is Boiler Room, and
Yes.
I love that movie. But I think that that's very important as well too. So I don't try to step on his toes, but we do try to define the roles clearly to where we understand what everybody's doing at all times. So, and then
Yeah.
also the systems. You know, we didn't have a lot when we got here, but now we have so many things that we do internally that just help us move smoothly. Like we have that system called Thrive. And even for a while, we were looking for a good social media team because it's kind of hard to figure out, okay, like we can do local stuff, but also how do you reach people online with the SEO and things like that? And my
Yeah.
background is in communication and social media, but that's not what I wanted my bread and butter to be. I wanted to focus on other things. So
Right.
that
Right.
was definitely a part that we had to work on. That was a little difficult too because you're always trying to figure out like, okay, well, who should we work with, or who's this, who's that, because that's something that we're going to delegate to somebody else as opposed to being in
Yeah.
house. Yeah.
Ah,
And yeah.
I, I love how you're highlighting this because somebody tuning in or who will tune in needs to hear that Business
Yeah.
is, especially a business partnership, is not just vibes. What you're and a shared logo. Kind of what you're
Yeah.
expecting is kind of just a real breakdown on building
Yeah.
a standard operating procedure.
Yeah. Yeah. And he's very business minded.
Okay.
I'm a little whimsical, but he's very business minded. And that's another reason why it works. And again, play to your strengths. I can help him with the sales part, I can help him close, but he's really good with the technical aspect, leading the team, managing the team, and things like that. And I just kind of step in and do the back office stuff, the writing of the policies and things like that too, because at the end of the day, we want to scale. We want to be seen as a prominent business because I look at our peers, like larger tree companies, and see what they're doing, or even just
Right.
some of our, our black peers too that are in the business world too. I'm always looking at them like, oh, okay, especially if they've been in business for 20, 25 years. Like some of them give me advice. So I'm always trying to figure out how do we scale, what things do they have in place that maybe we could do, or not even just tree companies. Sometimes I just look at this when we go to those events, I look at the small companies, I look like, oh, how they present themselves, or
Mhm.
what does their capability statement look like, and things like that. And I think that's been really helpful with understanding how to move forward as well too.
So another question I have for you, for the folks watching who might be maybe a little timid on how to scale or how to envisioning scaling, can you just speak a little bit on the difference between what you think being unprepared looks like versus simply just kind of being in motion and kind of learning some of those learning curves in real time?
Hmm. Unprepared would look like, what would I say unprepared is in terms of this specific company? That would be not understanding your client's needs. That would be
Mm,
unprepared.
mhm,
Because people only buy from who they know, like, and trust. That's
mm,
sales. That's normal. And you only have one time to make a first impression. And that's like from
mm,
my like recruiting days. Sometimes I would have candidates that would come on a Zoom interview. Their face is all on the camera, or it's dirty, or they're in their car, and it's like you're already making a bad impression with the employer here. So with your client, or even with or even say it's with the county, or say it's with or even just like a commercial client, you want to make a good impression. So being unprepared is that. Being unprepared is also not being prepared to answer questions, or not knowing your expertise, or sometimes I think it's better to come back with an answer as opposed to just blurting something out. That's another way I would say
yeah.
that could be seen as being unprepared, because that means that you don't have any coup to really think about a process, or use any critical thinking skills to get the
Was being
answer.
asked. Was
Yeah, so
being
that's one of the things that irritates me.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
so
along
that,
those lines,
yeah.
I have a follow up question, but I want to encourage everyone who's tuning in, whether you're on YouTube or LinkedIn or Facebook. Thank you for joining us for Make Money Mondays. If you've missed or you're just tuning in, go back and watch from the beginning because Taylor Wolfe has just dropped a whole bunch of valuable knowledge from 6 to 7 every first and third Mondays. Pinellas County Urban League is bringing you Make Money Mondays, but to that line where you were just saying, just kind of like first impressions and blurting things out. I mean, you're in notary work.
Hmm.
I mean, landscaping. I mean, any business is going to require a degree of detail orientation and trust. But I
Yeah.
think notary work is one of those industries that is detail heavy and trust heavy. What has that business taught you about reputation
Right,
and the
right.
importance of reputation?
Right. So being a notary, you are also providing a level of trust. So you have to let your client know that you understand the position they're in. You understand why we're here, because I'm a person that has this ability to do this, right? I'm also helping you because maybe this is an emergency, maybe this is a sensitive subject, say it's the will, or say it's somebody, maybe grandma's sick or something, and this is a very sensitive time for everybody. So you definitely want to be professional. You want to have discernment,
Mm,
because some situations can get funny, especially if it's a divorce, or a will, or just like maybe school documents, or maybe you have to be able to tell if someone's doing something shady. So
Mhm.
discernment is something that's really important in terms of this business as well too, because there's been situations where I've been like, I asked this question and they gave me the runaround, and I don't feel like that was the right answer. Or I have a notary mentor, which I love her down. I will ask her if something feels weird to me. I will have to ask her, because at the end it comes back on me, because I do have insurance to prevent things
Right.
like this happening, but I could also be in place of letting something, treacherous happen right now. So I'm
Right.
always skeptical of that, but also discernment is something very important that you need to have. And I say that with any business, because even with clients, if I feel like a client, I can always tell if a client is going to be difficult or try to hold back money or something like that by the way that they interact with us. Sometimes if they ask us a question that's posted, or are you guys licensed and insured? Yes.
Right.
Yes,
Right.
we are. It kind of says that on the truck, but okay. So it's just like, I don't know. Or they're like, oh, you guys have a license to do in the state of Florida? You could actually look that up if you
Right.
really care, stuff like that. So I still try to be professional, but it's always those things where you got to have discernment and
Mhm.
understand, like, okay, this also, things are new to people. Some people have never done any of these things. Some people have never got tree work done. Some people have never got anything notarized. This is the first time they're
Right.
looking at their will, or just all these kinds of things. So you just want to make sure that you make them feel comfortable, and you can discern if this is the right thing for you to do, if this is the right space, if this is the right time, and things like that as well too. Yeah.
Love that. Love that. All right.
Yes.
Want to give you the opportunity to go ahead and
Keep going. Yeah.
bring us home. Yeah. Yeah. Bring us
Yes,
home.
I can bring us home. Okay, so takeaways. And then also, if anybody has questions, I'm happy to answer them. I know that I talk really fast, so I do apologize. I am in Toastmaster, so I am trying to get rid of my ums. I am trying to slow down on the verbiage, and I am trying to stay on point as well too. But I do want to offer just some feedback. I am always in the thick of it, and I don't want to portray like that I know everything, because it's not true, because we have situations that arise all the time, and sometimes I don't know how to attack them, but I always tell myself that you can do hard things. So you don't always need a perfect plan. You need faith and consistency. And one thing that the other owner, his name's Jay, he is a big proponent of consistency, because consistency is just, it helps you get more confident in your skills. Well, my notary skills are just even, my place with Albert and Ellis as well too. So that's something that I definitely would say that that's helped me, be more confident and just have the courage to start again. And then also, I mentioned instability isn't a setback, it's preparation. Because when you're
Ooh,
unstable, it lets you know what you're lacking, but also that gives you feedback to what you need to fix. And that's better than nothing, I think.
yeah.
So, and then I think that being in my sales career, that has helped me bootstrap a lot of stuff and understand, like, okay, well, this has to get done in order for this to get done. So I'll say that as well too. And building systems is important. And then we kind of use that word systems and scale and all this stuff, but it's really important. And a system could just be like, if you're starting out, I write everything down. I time block my schedule. I have a place, I have a Google Doc where I do everything, just things to help you stay more organized so things don't
Mhm.
fall through the cracks. I think that's something that, people kind of forget, because when we say systems, everybody thinks it's like this large CRM that you need, and sometimes it's just like a pen and paper. Sometimes I still run into like old school, people that have large businesses, by the way, and they're still pen and paper. They'll like give it to somebody else to digitalize, but they're still like pen and paper. So just
Yeah.
have a
Yeah.
system. Yeah. And then co-ownership. I know not everybody's situation is, like mine, but I think it's good when you're able to marry two strengths,
Mm.
because sometimes some people are better at selling, some people are better at the creative side or whimsical side, or some people are better with the technical things, and they have the idea and you just have to run with it. So I would tell people to be open to that as well too. Yeah.
Yep.
And then
Love it.
diversify your income. So I think that, having your 9 to 5 and then doing something else, or even having your 9 to 5, a side hustle, or even partnering with somebody else, I think those are all great things as well too, just as long as you can do them to your full extent. and then knowing
Hmm.
when to, walk away, because mine was a little bit, there were a couple reasons, not just because the hurricane. It was like I was already I was thinking this for months, and I was just not ready to take that leap of faith, but then the time presented itself, and then I was ready, because you're like, leaving
Yeah.
corporate America, that sounds crazy. What do you mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
But then, yeah, and
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
keep positioning, keep showing up. So every day is not going to look the same, and your effort is not going to look the same every day. But I think showing up is the most important thing that you can do, for yourself, for your partner, and your business as well too. And then that's the point. Yeah.
Love that. Say it again for the people who are waiting
Yeah.
on perfect conditions.
Yeah, there's no perfect condition, and there's no finish line. I mean, small steps are better than no steps, or as Jay would say, like in football, some yards are better than no yards. We're still getting down the field.
They know
So he
you.
always says that.
They know
Yeah.
you. Yes, and I'm
Yeah.
also gathering from your takeaways. You're saying that faith can get you started, and just a little bit of
Right.
faith is enough to get you started. But the systems kept you from playing with it once you started.
Yeah. Yeah.
The
Yeah.
systems got you
Sometimes when you even
playing.
like write down your expenses, and you like, I think once you have an idea of what things are going to look like, what things are going to cost, or even say like, with the notary business, a lot of things that people do, I'm even guilty of it. You get all these things, and then you realize now that you have these bills, right? I paid for the
Yeah,
CRM. I got this printer. I got this business. I have all these things. So now you're looking at that bottom line. And you're like, well, this is monthly. I got to pay this back. So that's also a reason why systems help you. They help you see what the bigger picture is, And
yeah,
sometimes, when we start a business, we just like, oh, $50 here, $30 there, $20 there. And you don't really realize that all that adds up. And then it's like, didn't even make any money yet. So that's
yeah,
where that faith and
yeah.
that courage comes in. Like, it's cool to have these things that seem professional, but also you have to execute. I think sometimes we
It's a
forget that.
it's a word. It's a
Yeah.
word because a lot of times we see that people want the leap but
Hmm.
not the landing strategy. And so
Yeah.
a big part of what you're talking through tonight is the landing strategy. Taylor, we got about 8 more minutes with you, and I just have two kind of final wrap up questions.
Okay.
Again, if you're live streaming from any of our platforms, please go ahead and submit your questions, and we would love to have them answered. Thank you, Denise, for tuning in. Thank you, Lauren, for tuning in. Thank you, Nancy, Tamika, some of our members who, I'm sure found value. I can't wait to hear
I
that
hope
follow up.
so. I hope
Um,
you guys were like, who is this
yeah, yeah.
girl? Just kidding.
No, the last two questions. What's one traditional career rule? Because you opened up talking about just finding your way after earning your degree into this
Hmm.
path naturally. What's one of
Right.
those traditional career rules that you had to unlearn in order to build the life that you have now?
Right. So I am a millennial. I'm 95, by the way. So my mom is, she's a working mom, and I saw her stay at the same job for 30 years. She retired from there, right?
Mhm.
And
Right.
I think one of the things that we used to think is that you have to stay at a job for a long time, and that's the only way to, be prosperous. And that mindset kind of messes with you, because when I worked at the smaller companies, they worked there because they were the owners of the companies, and they would, rotate interns, they would rotate people like me, and they were never going anywhere. But there was also not a lot of space for me to grow there. So I had to have the courage to leave, even
Mhm.
though that one of their clients poached me, they were still okay with it, but they understood that. And I think that's one of the things I had to unlearn, is that if something is not working for you, especially that environment, you should remove yourself. And that's another
Yeah.
reason why I felt comfortable leaving my last company, because it was the largest company I ever worked for, because, they're a Fortune 500 company, and it just wasn't, working for me anymore. So I think I
Yeah.
had having the courage to do that and understand that, and not feel bad about, doing what's right for me, because I still have some peers that still work there, still see them
Yeah.
everything. There's no bad blood, but it's just like, oh, they're okay with working there, because this works for them. But I knew that for my life, this was, so I needed something different.
Yeah. And as an
Yeah.
entrepreneur, you have to pivot, right? You can't
Right.
get too.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
that's good. That's good. We did have a
Yeah.
question come in online. Nancy asked, what were some of
Okay.
your struggles maybe that you haven't mentioned, and how would you advise the inspiring offer other than just keeping the faith? Like,
Keeping the
I know we
faith.
talked about
Yeah.
beyond
Right.
keeping the faith, like
Beyond
what,
keeping the
what
faith. Yeah.
mm-hmm,
I think some of the struggles that people don't really see is the work that you do on yourself, because I
mm,
know personally as Black women, sometimes we think like, oh, are we deserving to be here? Are we deserving to
mm,
have this life? Are we deserving to be in this position? And that's one of the things that sometimes is we still, no matter, I feel like a lot of women, no matter what stage they get, they feel that way sometimes. So that's
mm,
something that still comes up, but also
mm,
you have to know that your journey is yours. So it's not really a place for
yeah,
me to look over at someone else or be on TikTok and be like, oh, she's farther than me. No, that's her journey. This is my path. This is what God bestowed
yep,
upon me. And that's still kind of saying keep the faith, but it's also understanding that your lane is different than someone else's. And that's hard
yeah,
to realize in the moment, because you can see someone maybe moving a little bit faster than you, and maybe that's just their season. But that's something
yeah,
I have to tell myself, that like, this season is this for me right now, but also I try to make sure that I keep my eyes focused on what I need to do. So that's where it goes back to that PMA, that positive mental attitude. Because if you
yep,
don't, yeah, a lot of the entrepreneurs that I've studied or that I really like, the entrepreneur women, they all go back to, it all goes back to faith. Whether you're like a spiritual guru or you're a traditional Christian, what they all say the same thing. It's all faith based. It's all the
yep.
understanding of myself. I can do better. I have to know this. I have to envision this. So no matter how you try to slice it, it's about faith.
It's yep.
Yeah.
It's gonna fall back onto it, but
Yeah, because some you read these self-help books and they're like, oh yeah, it's manifestation, it's and then it all goes back to that same being. So yeah.
it's gonna boil down to something,
Yeah.
and that's where I think I find alignment, and I think culturally here at the Urban League where we find alignment with um, just that type of approach, right? This faith
Right,
based
right.
approach, knowing
Hmm.
that all work together for good, right?
Yeah.
So one final question I have for you,
Okay.
and it kind of ties into what you were just kind of saying, which is just different seasons for different people to have different,
Hmm.
I guess needs. You speak almost as if there is no finish line, right? And
Hmm.
I subscribe to that, right? It's like
Yeah.
it's a marathon, right? Not a race.
Yeah.
And
Literally.
and I figured you subscribe to the marathon thinking, but
Yeah.
um, how do you how do you keep showing up without burning out, without feeling left behind, without
Mm.
doing that comparison that you were saying, which is, oh, this
Hmm.
person in this further, and
Yeah.
it sounds good again, just like the partnership with your
Yeah. Sounds good
partner,
on
right?
paper, right?
Yeah, but how do
Yeah.
you keep showing up
Yeah.
without burning out?
Right. And I'll be honest too. I had to figure out what works for me, because even though I left corporate America, I still have like that worker bee mentality sometimes, which is good
Mm,
and bad, depending on who you talk to. But I still have to feel the need that I'm doing something productive.
yeah,
I have to. My brain will think like, girl, what are you doing right now? Like, you're not being who you're supposed to be. You're not a bit who you're doing. You're spending this time scrolling. No, 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 no. So I have to remind myself, that there's something to do. So I always try to have a to-do list. Not everything's gonna get done all the time, but that's okay, right? Because I
right,
know every
right.
day is gonna look different for me. Sometimes the to-do list is gonna be full and get everything checked off, but sometimes the to-do list has really large tasks that are gonna take hours to do at a time. So I
Hmm.
extend grace to myself, and I know God bestows grace upon me. So sometimes when I'm freaking out, or I'm just like, girl, what are you doing? Or I'm like, okay, well, how did you let that slip through the cracks? I just have to reel it back in, because me being worked up and overwhelmed about it is not going to be helpful to anything in the situation. So then I just have to
At
break
all.
it down. And I know you mentioned earlier, like when we were just talking before we got on here, we talked about working backwards from the finish line, and that's something that you have to do. You have to know, okay, this is the target. I need to think about what I need to do to get there. So
Right.
that's really helpful for me as well too.
Love that. Love that. Taylor,
Yeah,
thank you so much for joining us tonight.
of course.
please let the people know how they can get in touch with you for design
Yes, yes, yes,
and
yes.
their landscaping needs, please.
Yes, yes, yes. So we do West Central Florida. So wherever you are, we go as far south as Fort Myers and we go as far north as like Hudson. So, but you guys are not that far. But yeah, so you can call us anytime. Our office is downtown. You can Google us, Albert and Ellis Landscaping. You can look us on Thumbtack, Yelp, Google. We're there. Same for me, Taylor Wolfe, Signature Notary Group. You can Google me. That's my email, website, business phone number. I operate out of Armature Works actually. So
Love
I
it.
work. I handle. Sometimes I go to the downtown office, but mostly my office is I operate out of Armature Works. So, and I'm pretty close to the interstate, and I am ready to travel for your notary needs. Let me know what you guys need help with. I'm here to help answer questions or even refer because sometimes people don't know what to do in certain situations, and I can get feedback like that as well too.
Love that. Love that. And surely soon to be one of our next level Urban Alliance members. So I'm
For
sure
sure.
you we'll hear from Taylor again soon. But
Yes.
again, on behalf of our president and CEO, Nikki Gaskin Capehart, I want to thank you all for tuning in. Watch the playback, send it to someone. But the most
Please.
important part here, scan this QR code and take our survey and give us some feedback on your thoughts on the session, your thoughts on what we're doing here at the Urban League for Entrepreneurs. But want to thank you again for joining us for Make Money Mondays. Any final thoughts, Taylor?
No, I'm happy to be here with you guys, and hopefully it was valuable and transparent. That's what I care about. Transparency.
I think the playback is gonna look great. So
Okay,
thank you guys
good.
for joining, and y'all have a great
Okay.
great rest of your night.
All
All
right.
right, good night.